Hey folks, Brushy here for Brush Hippie's backyard do-it-yourself aquaponics. Easy enough to say. Last video I basically just showed you around, and this video will kind of explain more what's going on. So we've got the 3 fish tanks. I actually get my water out of a creek right here that is actually already perfect. One of the key things to aquaponics is your water. People do this in the city. You're either going to use city water, you're going to use well water. Well water is perfectly fine, I would think, to put fish straight in. That's the way this creek water is. It's the pH runs around 7.3 to 7.5, something like that, which is ideal for fish. They like a little bit higher pH, and the plants like a little bit lower. So this whole deal is kind of a balancing act. You got to keep the fish happy, and you have to keep the plants happy. The plants will tell you immediately when something goes awry. Like one of my beds just recently probably stayed flooded for 3 or 4 days because a couple of the plants started to yellow and droop like anything that's overwatered. So they have to have that flood and drain going all the time. In the media, now the floating raft beds, those plants basically just, the roots are hanging down in that water. So I'm not really sure what the difference is, why these will yellow and those are in water, but they don't. So that's not something that I don't really know why it does that. So anyway, what we're doing, like I said before, we're taking this creek water. It's got to be up to temperature for tilapia, because tilapia are very temperature sensitive. I've been using goldfish for years. Matter of fact, these goldfish started out in a stock tank up at the horse barn just to eat the algae out of the tank. And they lived in there year-round. They'd go down to the bottom of that tank in the wintertime, and there's a heating coil down there, and they'd keep it warm enough that they wouldn't freeze and the water wouldn't freeze. So they're pretty hardy. But the tilapia are not near as hardy as the goldfish are. Temperature goes down in the water to 50 degrees, and these tilapia are dead. So in the winter time, I've got them underneath the house, and in the summertime, they're out here. So anyway, what we have is creek water from the creek out here. This is 3 IBC totes. This is what they call a chop and flip. They cut the top of this off, flip it over and fill it with media, and that's what those 2 beds are over there. So we've got 3 chop and flip IBC tanks, about 275 gallons apiece. I've got them tied together with a manifold that uses, these things come with a valve from the factory, and I plumb into that valve so I can use the shutoff. So I can isolate these tanks. When the fish are really small, you got to be careful not to let. I've had them in this manifold before, and I had no idea. So that was kind of a bummer. I lost 3 fish when I was adding these overflows, and it just happens. So anyway, we got these 3 tanks. The water runs down into the settling tank down there that I showed you in the last video, and it's just a 55-gallon drum. So the pipe comes out of that manifold, runs around there, and goes into the bottom of that tank. And if I'm not mistaken, it's got a 90 and comes up to about that far from the top. And what that does is lets that, it's got a tube around it also, so the solids come up and fall down to the bottom of that tank, and then the water goes from the top of the settling tank into the biofilter tank, which we'll go over there and put the camera on it. Okay, and here's the settling tank. It comes in right here, makes a 90, comes up, and the top of that tube's about right there. So the solids basically inside this tube drop to the bottom. and then our water goes straight across from here. Can we see that? Yes, we can. That goes in straight into this tank, which is another 55-gallon drum. But I've got 2 or 3 oxygen stones in there, and I've got the media that helps change the bacteria, grows on the media that takes the ammonia from the fish waste and turns it to nitrites. And there's another bacteria that lives on those biomedia that takes the nitrites and turns it to nitrates. So that happens right there. It also happens in the grow beds out there also. We'll go have a look at that. Okay. So that bacteria lives on the media that's in that tank over there, but it also lives in these beds. These beds can have several different kinds of media. Really anything will work in here. This is creek gravel for the most part, but it's got some expanded shale in there also. The expanded shale is just a more porous rock, really. So anyway, you've got those 3 tanks, and those fish have to clean the water for those fish to continue to live. So between that biofilter and these beds, this cleans everything out of that water from this bed to that one into that sump tank over there, and that's how it works. So you have to have enough plants to take the ammonia out of the water. If you don't, you're gonna have dead fish. If you got too many plants, your plants are not gonna have enough nutrients. So I think it was one of these beds is supposed to be, or it will filter the water for like 12 fish. So 2 of these beds covers basically 1 tank. But I'm getting away with a little bit more than that, less actually area, because my floating raft probably does as much as 3 of these, if not more than that. So that's how that deal works. So anyway, we've got this is how the system works, and these plants are just drawing nitrates out of the gravel. The roots are down in this gravel. The water runs in. Like I said, it'll fill up. It fills up to about 1 inch below this gravel, and it has a bell siphon in here. And when that water level gets up, it starts to flood that bell siphon. When it does, it sucks all the water out of this thing. So like I said, every 15 or 20 minutes, this thing fills up and drains. Fills up and drains. So it's getting oxygen to the roots all the time. That's pretty important. You can't really just leave them sitting in water. Like I said, you can in the floating bed, but in the media beds, they won't take it. I'm not really sure why, but that's just the way it works. Okay, so we covered basically what goes in, what comes out. Obviously the plants themselves are, some things are better suited for it than others. I haven't really found the melons and what have you like that are gonna, I had very little fruiting last year on my first big outing with the full-size toads. The plants were enormous, but they didn't really fruit well. And part of that is because of the nutrients, the macronutrients that are not present in fish food that you have to add. I'll get to that at another, in a future video as well. Another thing we'll do is talk more about the fish, and I have spent a lot of time trying to figure out how it is that I'm going to keep track of these fish, and I finally ended up putting a camera in the tank. This is an IP camera in a jar in that tank, and I can, anywhere I'm at, I can get on my phone and look at my fish in real time. I'm the fish voyeur. It's kind of cool. You really need to be able to keep track of them, and if you start adding these macronutrients, it's going to change the color of the water. It darkens the water up, and then you can't see the fish anymore. The tilapia are really skittish anyway. Mine are anyway. I guess if they don't have people walking in front of them all the time like they do, and I see a lot of these breeders have glass tanks. People are walking by them all the time, and it doesn't bother them. But when they're in these IBC totes, they don't see people. When I walk by there, they freak out. So with this, I can monitor the size and actually the water quality also. Plus, this one is it's infrared, so you notice that it didn't make the water look red because it doesn't see red. Pretty cool. Anyway, that's it for this one. We'll get more into fish, or I'm not really sure what I'm going to do next. Leave a comment below. Any questions that you have, feel free to ask. I mean, if you're going to get on there and tell me that I'm doing something wrong, I probably am. Feel free. Like I said, there's 100 different ways to do this. This is just the way I'm doing it. I'm not even an expert at the way I do it. So until next time, y'all be cool and get out there and grow with the fishes. That's dread still. Growing with the fishes. We'll get into cannabis a little later on.